Good morning, afternoon, and good evening, everyone from all over the world, from Shanghai to South Africa, United States, and all the many other parts of the world you're joining us from. I'm Elgic Hogan. I am the Managing Director of WINGS WorldQuest. We are a nonprofit based in New York City that recognizes extraordinary women from all over the world in science and exploration, like the mind-blowing women you're going to meet on our panel today. A few of them apologized for getting their slides to me a little late, and I said, well-behaved women rarely make history. So that's who these women are, and I'm so excited to introduce them all to you today. We're here in this webinar with young women from all around the world who are interested in pursuing STEM careers, as well as their mentors, who are all participating together in 2 virtual mentoring programs with our partner on this panel, the New York Academy of Sciences. The Next Scholars Program focuses on female undergraduates at colleges and universities throughout the United States. 1,000 Girls, 1,000 Futures program works with high school young women throughout the globe. And on our panel today have received the WINGS WorldQuest Women of Discovery Award. They're all WINGS Fellows and part of our international community of women in science and exploration. We give honorees a financial prize so that they can use however they want and need to help with research and initiatives. And we now bring them to New York City for a gathering so they can present their research and initiatives. Our goal is to share the amazing work they do to improve our environment, help us better understand the world in which we live, here and beyond. We want to be able to continue to do the work that impacts our world and for them to serve as role models for future scientists, explorers, and leaders like yourselves. I myself started my career as an environmental engineer. I faced a lot of unequal treatment and uphill battles in my career as an engineer, which led me to this role as an advocate for women in science. We have webs of support, like the by WINGS and the New York Academy of Sciences virtual mentoring programs, help us exponentially grow the number of women who enter STEM careers and STEM careers. We feel it's critical for the world that we access all of the greatest minds in science. But as the first panelist, I want to share with you a video to give you a taste of the many fierce women who are part of the WINGS WorldQuest national community. They've all received the Women of Discovery Award or carried our flag on expeditions around the globe. Julie, can you have video now? Thank you. Okay.
One of the things I love about being a scientist is that you're really discovering the unknown. You're constantly learning new things that people never knew before.
The laser I skied across Antarctica is just ridiculous. And it's unbelievable. The view is spectacular. It's dying out. We're not going to be stuck by closed doors.
We're going to fight every day in the water. It's going to be tough.
What I appreciate most about WINGS is that it's a great movement that you need.
Thank you. So now I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Erin Pettit. She's a glaciologist and a geophysicist. She explores glaciers so we can better understand climate change and rising seas. She's in Alaska, but she's joining us today from steamy Washington, D.C., where she was presenting at the National Geographic Conference. Erin?
Thank you. All right, and thank you so much for inviting me, because things that I love more than anything else in the world is sharing my love for exploration and curiosity with you, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, I have been studying. I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been doing, what my current career path is, and then a little bit about how I got here, because I definitely followed an unconventional path. I think that's it's been really great for me, but I think it's also good to think about taking conventional pathways and twisting them into new and exciting, different paths. So, yeah, as you said, I'm a glaciologist, and so I basically study how ice is changing and how that's impacting our world globally. I do a lot of my work down in the Antarctic. I've been down on Antarctic expeditions like 16 or 17 times. I don't know, too many to count anymore. But I've also worked in Alaska, in British Columbia, in Washington, and Greenland, in the Himalayas a little bit in South America. So I feel incredibly privileged getting to travel all over the world, doing this work that I feel like is really helping us understand the rates of sea level rise that might be that in store for us, and some more just things like life on other planets, which is a little twist of my research that I get to work on a little bit. But the other thing that I do, and I'm going to start by talking about that. If you want to go to the next slide, and that's it. About 15 years ago, I started a program called Girls on Ice, which was intended for me to share my love and the women that started it with me to share our love of field research and how we go about exploring in the field with teenage girls. And it's super important and inspiring to see them get out there and push themselves. And it's really important in terms of moving forward all field research, because when you're out there isolated, far away, and you have maybe 2 or 3 other people on your research team, there's so many much better science comes out of really good quality teamwork and creative problem solving. That it's not only an inspiring thing for these girls to do, but it's really good skill building towards potentially become a field researcher. And we're still we're expanding the program. We call it now Inspiring Girls Expeditions, and for example, we're starting a kayaking-based expedition this summer. But the thing is, I started this program just totally on a whim. I had no idea where it was going to go. I just pulled together enough money to kind of do it one summer, and it sort of has just kept going almost on its own to a certain degree. Like, I did not know the direction this was going to go. I just took a risk and asked if I could do something like this, and people just kept opening doors whenever I asked if they would help me with this program. And so that's one of my huge pieces of advice, is just put yourself out there and taking those risks. And sometimes people are going to say no. But I had enough people telling me yes on this that now we've had over 200 girls going through this. We have 30 women that are involved, scientists, artists, mountain guides. So it's been really inspiring for me just to see what can happen when you just put a little bit of energy into something. So on this slide, I just want to show you a little bit about some of my research. If you can go to the slide, because I feel incredibly privileged to get to work and studying in these rapidly changing places. Those top 2 photos are from the Antarctic Peninsula, which is the fastest changing icy part of our planet right now, and we're trying to understand the changes that have been happening this week and will be happening next week. We get satellite information back from those, and then we're down there to work on it. And the lower two photos are from this place called Blood Falls, which you've seen in the media in the last couple of months because it sort of went a bit viral. And that's really a project that is helping us not only understand glaciers, but also understand life on other planets. So it's just, for me, it's really fun to get to work interdisciplinary projects and get to meet and work with so many other people. And my presence here at National Geographic this week is all about that kind of interdisciplinary sharing. Like, I met archaeologists and oceanographers and planetary scientists and photographers and filmmakers and conservationists and biologists. We're all inspired by each other and thinking about how we can work together. And that's the second piece of advice, is to surround yourself with other people who inspire you and keep them in your life. How did I get here? I was actually a pretty shy, awkward kid. I was an outcast at school. I don't think anybody ever thought I went on to be able to do any public speaking or do anything sort of the box. I felt like a pretty shy, and I was a pretty shy, awkward kid. I just kept probing. My curiosity was really what kept me going through all the awkwardness of childhood and teenage years and getting into college and figuring out who I wanted to be. And I studied mechanical engineering, and then I worked designing hybrid electric cars when those were kind of coming out into the market. But I quickly realized that as much as I thought hybrid cars are a great idea, it didn't fit me. Like, the value of going there was great, but it didn't fit me. And so I started thinking of how I combine my love for the mountains, my love for the science, and environmental issues that were pretty strong. And then I ended up in glaciology because it was this beautiful triangulation of all of the things that I loved. And then I just kept moving forward step by step. I had no idea what my long-term life was going to look like. I just knew that I needed to go to graduate school first, and then I was going to see what happened next. And along the way, there were lots of failures. I just persevered and stayed determined and took each of those as a learning experience. And I was willing to think outside the box and not follow the normal path. And I think that's one of the reasons I've been as successful and happy with what I'm doing. So with that, I'm just gonna take a step back and listen to what these other amazing women have to say, and I'm happy to take questions later on. Thanks.
Right. Thank you so much, Erin. Great to hear how doing something on a whim and taking a risk led to something so successful and rewarding. So yeah, look forward to being able to ask more questions later. And next up, we have Dr. Rosalie Lopez, who holds the world's record for discovering the most active volcanoes anywhere. And they are on Jupiter's moon Io. She's a volcanologist who's been with NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab for over 25 years. And she also has just recently come from Antarctica, where she was looking here on Earth to see what life on other planets might be like, just like Erin does. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Rosalie, Dr. Lopez. I know she had some trouble.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. I anyway. Hello.
Okay. Good. Right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to talk to girls. I am a planetary geologist and volcanologist, and I got here through a bit of a tortuous path as well. I grew up in Brazil, and I was totally fascinated by the Apollo program and the exploration of the moon. I wanted to be an astronaut. Actually, I was a girl growing up in Brazil, and at that time, the astronauts were men, except for one Russian woman who became an astronaut, I think, as a bit of an experiment. I realized that being female, Brazilian, and the other things, that I had terrible eyesight. so I wasn't really going to make it as an astronaut. And so I decided that I would still work for NASA in planetary exploration, and decided to become an astronomer. I went off to England to study astronomy at University College London, and I have to give a lot of credit to my parents because they let me go and supported me. And at that time, it was rare for women in Brazil young women to, just live home and go to another country. But they fully supported me, and I studied astronomy, and I was all kind of going towards astrophysics when I took a class in planetary geology. And then a couple of weeks into the course, the professor didn't show up. He was a teaching assistant who said, well, the professor is a volcanologist, and Mount Etna in Sicily has erupted, and the professor had to go. And wow, that's really exciting. I was being something of an explorer, and I thought that actually doing something on Earth where I could travel and go to volcanoes and have adventures would be really great. So I eventually went to talk to him, and I said, I really enjoyed your course and want to do a PhD with you. And he said, well, okay, I never had a student who wasn't a geologist, an astronomy background, but I suppose you can do something. So I went along and I did something, and I did very well. So eventually ended up as a postdoctoral scholar at that proposed laboratory. So I moved to the U.S. for a 2-year position, and that was quite a risk. At that time, I had quite a secure job in England, but it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. So I took a risk and came to the U.S. for 2 years. And, JPL liked me and I liked them, and at the end of the 2 years, I was employed to work on the Galileo mission. And that's the mission that went to Jupiter. And I particularly studied Io, which is Jupiter's volcanic moon. It has lots of active volcanoes. And that's when I discovered the San Juan volcanoes. And eventually a colleague from England said, you should be in the Guinness Book of World Records. And I said, oh, maybe. And he contacted someone. And anyway, that's how it happened. And ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records. My son thought it was pretty cool. So I was happy about that. So after the Galileo mission, I started working on the Cassini mission, which is orbiting Saturn. And you might now and go to the next slide. Had many opportunities to travel. In the center of the slide here, you see Io, Jupiter's volcanic moon. It has this yellow and red colors. It looks like a pizza. In fact, it's nicknamed the Pizza Moon. And that was the moon I studied very intensively, still do. Now, in order to really understand the volcanoes on Io, I have done a bunch of field work on volcanoes on Earth. In fact, that started during my PhD. So I've worked on active volcanoes on every continent, including Antarctica. And you see in Antarctica with the WINGS flag. A picture above that is in Hawaii. And I'm looking at some sulfur. In fact, Io has lots of sulfur. And that is brought out to the surface by the volcanoes. And on the picture on the other side, I'm in Vanuatu. Vanuatu is an archipelago of islands in the South Pacific. This island is called Ambiam, and it has a very active lava lake. Now, we think a lot of volcanoes on Io are lava lakes. So some colleagues and I have been studying them. And the last few years, I also have been studying Titan, which is a very interesting moon of Saturn. And in fact, I have been moving towards astrobiology, which is, Erin talked about, which is the study of whether life could actually be present on other planets and moons and how we would find it. So I still have a very exciting career, and I do quite a bit of management these days, and I'm trying to go back more to research, but we all have to do our service time, and it's been a good experience. And I have also dedicated a lot of time to education and outreach, because I think that in the next generation is the most important thing really that a scientist can do. We can make discoveries, we can go so far, but it's really the people who come after us who are going to do better work. So with that, I'll pass it on to the next speaker and wait for questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you much, Dr. Lopez. And you can actually read more about her expedition that she took to Antarctica in December on the WINGS WorldQuest page. We have a flag carrier page, and there she published a flag report about that expedition there. So read more about that there. And she's also great to follow on Facebook. I saw she shared her Facebook because she posts really fun videos of volcanoes erupting. So anyway, thank you so much. And next up, Cummins, do not let her catching you using a straw. She has been leading and organizing research expeditions in all of the world's oceans and in all the world's 5 of the world's subtropic gyres to figure out how plastic garbage is in them and what we can do to get out of there. So she has influenced legislation. She's amazing. And with that, I'll give it to Anna.
Well, good afternoon and evening, everyone. And thank you so much. I'm absolutely thrilled to participate today. And what an incredible group of speakers. I feel truly honored. So when you first reached out to me to ask me to participate, my first thought was, well, I'm not a scientist. Part of the message I want to leave with you today is that you need not necessarily be a trained scientist with a PhD to enter the field or advance the field of science, education, policy, etc. You just passed to get here. So my adventure is as the co-founder and now global strategy director for the 5 Gyres Institute, an organization that my husband and I co-founded back in 2009. And our goal was really to explore this issue of plastic pollution in the world's oceans on a global level. As you see in the bottom right-hand corner, I was thrilled to join the WINGS network in 2011. It's just been amazing to be amongst such a group of supportive women doing such amazing things. So I get here to this field of plastic pollution. It certainly wasn't what I dreamed I would do one day when I was your age, that I'm going to spend my life studying garbage. But I always knew I had a deep connection to the outdoors. I loved going to the beach. Grew up in Los Angeles, so it's not, you don't necessarily think of nature, but there is always nature. I became a vegetarian when I was 14 years old, and that was my first inkling that the choices that we make every day, from the food we eat, to the clothes we buy, to the products we buy, have far-reaching impacts on the world in ways that we may never imagine. I decided to go back and get my master's in international environmental policy in 2000, and it was here that I heard a chance lecture in 2001 from Captain Charles Moore. I really want to echo what Erin said at the beginning. You never know what will happen when you reach out. When you're inspired by someone, you reach out and connect. And I reached out to Captain Moore after that lecture, and that decision really changed the course of my life. He invited me on an expedition in 2008, and let's go to the next slide, to look at plastic pollution in the North Pacific Gyre. So what is a gyre? Now, there are 5 major gyres in the world's oceans. They've been called garbage patches. Really think of a huge current system that concentrates floating objects. Now, through previous research in the North Pacific Ocean, that there's this vast area that people call the garbage patch that's filling up with plastic pollution. So in 2008, I had the opportunity to cross that gyre from Hawaii all the way back to Los Angeles, do research every single day, and that's what really sealed the deal for me. Something else that happened on that voyage that sealed the deal was Dr. Marcus Ericsson, a researcher on board, proposed with a little ring that he made out of garbage. and realized that there was a huge gap in the global research, that no one was looking at the Southern Hemisphere. So that's what inspired us in 2009 to start this organization, GIRES, to bring other researchers, students, teachers, scientists, even artists and makers and journalists on board with us to do the research, become engaged as ambassadors, and then go back to their communities to drive change. And we have 300 ambassadors around the world, from ages 9 all the way up. So if anything that moves you, we would love to for you to reach out and join our ambassador program. Now, when we took all of the data and coupled it with data from 7 other scientists around the world, we came up with the first global estimate on how much plastic there is in the world's oceans. And you can see below, 70,000 metric tons, made up of 5.25 trillion particles. Now, next slide, with a brief about the importance of good science, and vetted science can really lead to solutions. Now, there's no denial that plastic pollution has huge ecological impacts on marine wildlife, on ecosystems. You can see there in the top left-hand corner a photo of a fish we caught, cut open the stomach and found 17 pieces of plastic inside its stomach. And you can see a turtle, one of many different kinds of species of animals that are hurt by our plastic pollution. But when you're in the middle of the ocean and there's no one country determining what those laws should be, it's really hard to hold people accountable. Find fragments of plastic in the middle of nowhere, we can't really point to a country or a company to hold them accountable. But in 2012 and 13, with Great Lakes, we found a sample you see in the top right-hand corner with plastic by count than any of the oceans we'd surveyed. And it turns out that those little plastic beads came from personal care products, scrubs, body washes, toothpaste, shaving cream. So we're able to use that science to drive policy, and culminated in 2015 when President Obama signed a national bill to ban plastic microbeads from personal care products. We're now to do something similar with polystyrene and foam, and I'd love to share more about that at the right time. But I'm going to close there. And again, I want to echo what other people have said. When you're moved and inspired and follow your passions, unusual doors will open that you might never have imagined in the first place. So trust your gut and reach out to things that really excite you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Anna. Something we have in common you might not know already is we both didn't realize we'd end up in garbage someday. One of the things I used to do as an environmental engineer was design landfills. So it was my career for a while, designing garbage pits. So next up, last but not least, and then we will open it up for questions, is Juliana Machado Ferreira from Brazil. She is one of our newest women of discovery. She's a conservation geneticist who uses forensics to combat the devastating effects of wildlife trafficking. She was in that video in the beginning with that look on her face that said, "Don't you dare touch my birds." And I'm going to let Juliana take.
Okay. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for this invitation. This is really exciting. And I'm sorry about the wind. I'm in São Paulo, Brazil, but it's actually freezing out here and very windy. So, I'm gonna tell you as well what I'm doing now and how the heck did I got here. So, you can the next slide, please. I'm a conservation geneticist, but my background is actually work now as an executive director of profit, and we work in 3 different pillars approaches, which is education, supporting law enforcement and research, and public policy and international articulation. So what we do is we try to change behavior to curb demand against illegal wildlife with education, which is the only thing that is actually long-lasting and we create true behavior change. We also work to institutionalize what we do, changing laws and doing public policy in order to make what we do long-lasting with all this political articulation. But in the meantime, while these two things don't give the results that they're supposed to do, we support enforcement with the different tools, including science. So one of the things that we are doing now in our organization is we are setting up a molecular biology lab in collaboration with the government to use population genetics, try to detect something that is one of the biggest drivers of wildlife trafficking in Brazil, which is taking poached animals, which are illegal, from nature, making them look like they were bred in captivity. So we are going to start to perform surprise paternity tests in legalized breeders in order to try to detect these animals. If the paternity test is a match, then it's a good indication that the animal was poached. So we have a very serious traceability problem. So, for example, a bird that was bred in captivity has to carry a little ring on its leg. It's called a leg band. And this is very easy to fraud and falsify. So what we're doing is we're starting a pilot project in which we are going to use DNA as an individual profile that will be part of the animal's documentation throughout its life. You cannot fake it, you cannot create fraud or forgery on the animal's DNA, and you can counterproof at any time. So very quickly, how did I get here? I'm in biology school because of Jane Goodall and Jacques Cousteau. I wanted to be on the field, and I wanted to be in nature. I hated genetics, and I hate laboratory work. But then a friend of mine said, you know, there is a professor starting a conservation genetics lab, you should check him. That was one of the best decisions in my life, because not only all the doors opened to me, but my advisor was the first person who really supported my dreams and my path. So I did a master's on conservation genetics. And master's, I was researching for a paper in the internet, and I came across the website for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Forensics Lab. They only do wildlife forensics, science to study crimes involving wildlife. And I have to go there. I have to learn. And people said, you're crazy. It's a federal crime lab. No one will ever accept you. And my advisor said, you go. I support you. You go. Then I asked. And I did an internship, which became a collaboration. And I ended up doing my PhD in collaboration with them years later. And that was a very interesting door that opened because I asked. I reached out. Then I started to learn about international wildlife trafficking. Later on, I met a guy who worked on the ground with the police on counter wildlife trafficking in Brazil. And I said, let me come with you, I need to learn. And they said, a girl in raids with the police? No, how are you going to do that? I asked, and I went on raids, and I'm friends with the police officers until today. I decided to do my PhD with population genetics and issues involved in wildlife trafficking in Brazil. And they said, you have to go to the field and get all these samples. You're never going to get results. And it's just you and a colleague in the field. You're never going to do it. I did. So I think that people have this tendency of saying, you're never going to do it. You're a girl, you can't do it. You're never going to be able. If you're hearing that, then keep on going, like a bull, put your head down and go. Because that's how we break these barriers. And in the end, I did a PhD, which is super recognized. I got a TED Senior Fellowship, the WINGS WorldQuest Award, Geographic Explorer, Emerging Explorer Award recognition. So, and actually, we are now really helping to change the situation of wildlife trafficking in Brazil and South America. So, I just to close, I did find a lot of barriers. And I just want you girls to hear that most of them were from other women, men, but from other women. And this is really important. This is what WINGS is doing. It's connecting and uniting women and not putting us competing to each other. This is what's really important. We need to help each other, support each other, and grow this amazing network. And welcome to Science Girls.
Thanks, Juliana. And yes, go on to the TED if you have not watched TED Talks before. There you can go to our website, see Juliana, as well as many other WINGS fellows and other incredible women scientists. So with that, I think, Carla, you're going to some questions. Is that right? Or Julie?
So,
Is that correct?
yeah, we can jump into question and answer mode now. We have anyone who has a question ready. I do have some backed up here. I sent the chat to everyone, but if anybody has a question, you can use your little hand raising tool to let us know so that you can jump in. Looks like Audrey has raised a hand. Audrey, why don't you go ahead, unmute yourself, and go ahead and ask away.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I was wondering, sacrifices or critical decisions have you faced in your career and travels, and how do you approach these decisions, and what are some advice that you have for people who do face these obstacles?
Any of you who want to?
Yeah, the challenges that I faced concerned relationship with my family. We had to be away from a long time, and sometimes in places which were not the safest. So I was under not the safest conditions, and I was scared, and my family was as well. But also, science requires a lot. Sometimes we're going to work more than in the corporate world, and you're going to earn less. So contributing so actively to the bills in the household, and at the same time you're working more hours a day. During my PhD, I used to work 13, 14 hours a day sometimes, and do field work trips that lasted 40 days each time. So I think that it's a family decision, and now the family has to be supportive. It's in the third sector that I'm right now in a no-profit. It's very difficult to contribute regularly to the bills, but so being a working mom changed everything, because when you have a small one home, it's difficult to be for so long, and then your priorities have to change, and you have to really redirect the path of your life. So that's what it was for me.
Yeah, this is Rosalie. Yeah, say that you have to balance your family life and your work very carefully. I always worked full-time from the time my son was quite young, but he's turned out really well. So I think it's also the quality time that you spend with your family, not necessarily the quantity.
I echo all of that. I think one of our early challenges was really a financial one of starting something very new, being an entrepreneur, having people tell you this can, it's too difficult, whatever the reasons are that people tell you not to do something. And so having the courage to just persist with that. Starting something new often means that you have to live a little bit lean until you can get the resources to support yourself. So that can sometimes be a hard challenge. And I see now, being a working mom and having a young girl, she's 4 years old, it's been wonderful to bring her along. To bring on some expeditions. We're taking her next week. This is not related to 5G, but out to the field to excavate dinosaurs. She's been to lots of conferences with us, and she can see that that mommy is getting to people and make a difference. So I think, balancing that work-life family is really challenging, but it can be done, as we've heard, and it's great to set that model for the next generation.
Oh, yeah.
You are.
I would say that most of my biggest compromises have been in those same areas of trying to not only figure out how to fund this new program, Girls on Ice, that I was trying to raise money for, but also finding the right supportive university environment that would allow me to do my research and still continue running that program. And unfortunately, at one point, unfortunately, I had to leave what thought I wanted to live and move to Alaska, and that was a little bit intimidating. But they presented a pretty supportive environment for it all, and they have maintained a hugely supportive environment. So it was definitely a risk and felt like a compromise at the time to move up to Alaska and move farther from family and friends. But I actually have had a hugely supportive environment up there and have built a new community and have new family connections and everything up there. And decision to move, and part of the academic world now is that many times you do have to move to places that you don't think you want to live. And I still think I wish we didn't have to have it that way, and I would love to find a solution for that in the academic world, because I think we lose many fabulous potential faculty scientists in the academic world because of the structure of the way it's set up right now. So I'm starting to even think more creatively about my own career in that sense for the future. I still have many years before I retire, and I could see myself going in many different directions. So keeping your mind open, and even if you feel like you're taking a risk or making a compromise, like it may not look like a compromise later on once you kind of get the bigger perspective. It might be just what you need to stimulate everything in the right way.
Okay. So we have a question that was chatted in, and I know we heard from one or two of you already, but for those who didn't answer, who are your role models that go into your respective fields?
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to say that a role model that was very important to me was a woman I never met. She worked on Apollo 13 at the Johnson Space Center. She was actually a contractor from TRW. And the Brazilian newspapers had a couple of articles about her because she was the only female working in flight control at the time. And just seeing that when I was, this little girl growing up in Brazil, that there was a female working at NASA was really so important. So sometimes your role model is just someone you never meet, and you read about or hear a lecture.
I'd say that probably my most profound role models were actually much closer to me. One was my cousin, who just taught me how to think creatively and take risks and ask for things. And another role model for me was a dear friend of mine, Meredith, who taught me how to listen more sometimes and how to ask questions to really bring out interesting ideas. And she was my role model as a teacher. So really, I was just profoundly impacted teaching by her side, and she was a huge role model for me. So many I see many of those role models that I had, just who played specific roles along the way, that are mostly peers, friends, and that I admire, that have been close to me. So I think, they're both multiple types of role models.
A lot of role models that I'm so thankful for. So Jane Goodall and Jacques Cousteau, who got me in biology and my love for nature and conservation. And of course my parents, who always thought that it was the cool, that I wanted to go in the mud and work with animals, and said, off you go, it's fine, we support you, we think it's cool. But also my advisor, my master's and PhD advisor, he was the real platform that I could stand up on so that I could pursue all these dreams. And the director, deputy director, and the geneticist at the U.S. Forensics Lab, who welcomed me and made me part of their team and family for so many years. And a guy who doesn't get credited enough, so his name is Marcelo Rocha. He's the president and founder of a small Brazilian NGO called SOS Fauna, and was the first to introduce me to wildlife trafficking and not so much the international trade of very rare and expensive animals, but the trade that goes on a daily basis of the tiny little birds that are illegally traded by the thousands here in Brazil. So putting all of them together, then it's a huge mixing pot, and here's my career. So just thanks to all of them.
And people I could name here. First, it's almost cliche in the environmental movement to say Rachel Carson, but still the courage that she had to stand up to some really powerful industries, the personal criticism she took for that, and movement that she'd sparked is incredible. And if anyone hasn't read Silent Spring, I can't recommend it enough. I was always really inspired by the story of Julia Butterfly Hill for having the courage to go up into a tree for 2 years and stand up for her values, and some, real challenges, just the practical challenges of living in a tree for 2 years. And then my parents. My parents are two of the most amazing people in the world. They're incredibly dedicated to education and youth and very involved in their community. They're both still working time at age 83 and 80. So they've always been role models for me too in the importance of giving back to your community.
Thank you. Role models can come in so many different forms. And I know in the beginning when Dr. Pettit said that when she was thinking of starting Girls on Ice and reached out to people to ask for advice and input, I think it's the same with just any role model, someone from afar to reach out, write an email, write a letter, and, you might be very surprised at how much you get back. So now Jinky has a question. We're going to turn it over the mic over her.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Donkey.
Sorry.
It's fine. So I'm an undergrad, and one of the issues that I'm dealing with right now is I have a lot of different interests, and because I have so many different interests, I can't get experiences in all of those interests. So I can't really tell which way I should navigate my future education and career, and I don't want to go of one interest for another, if that makes sense. So how do I deal with that?
I can hear quickly because I think I was probably similar to you as an undergrad, and I think what I can say is that you don't have to choose one path right now, like that you're going to do for the next 60 or 70 years. Just you can. It might feel like you're setting something aside for a couple of years because you want to focus in one direction to build up some experience, but there's absolutely no reason you can't come back to that interest a few years later, because if it's still there and it stays with you as that interest in the back of your head, then you will come back to it. You'll find ways to come back to it. And so you don't necessarily have to feel like by letting go of an interest at 22 or 25 means that you won't be able to come back to that passion when you're 35 or 40 or even just 27. I think they're there for a reason, and the ones that are going to stay with you are the ones that you'll eventually figure out how to meld into. If you're open to kind of keeping them around, you'll find ways to fit them into your life.
I had a professor in grad school who could sense that I didn't want to make a choice. I was interested in so many different things, and she used this analogy that I've always remembered about a funnel. You have all these incredible options ahead of you, and it feels like you're narrowing by choosing an area. But when you do, then that funnel opens up again. And as Erin said, you can find so many ways to plug in. Since it's Mother's Day, I want to mention, Mike said to me at age 60, he felt like he was just hitting his stride after starting all kinds of schools in Los Angeles and being involved in all these projects. So a long life ahead of you.
I wanted to do everything, and I wanted to go to school and biology and I think that life doesn't have to be a straight line with an arrow moving forward. You can come and go. For example, I started at the Oceanographic Institute, and I ended up in the Conservation Genetics Lab. So I think that you can try a little bit as well, but also you get serendipity a little bit. For example, who thought in my life I would end up as a geneticist? And turns out it was the way for me to put everything I wanted together. So you can choose something that you are interested in and makes you happy, but then along the way you can always go back and change, because you don't have to not move back again. I don't know who put that stupid rule in our minds, but I can try to be like a branch. You can have lots of branches. So see, I was a conservation geneticist, but then I started to do public policy, lectures, education, media outreach. You can do more. You don't have, if you are in the lab, you don't have to just be in the lab. You can see all the extensions that your career path allow you to follow.
Okay. Okay, so I think, thank you so much. I think we're just about out of time, so sorry for any questions we're not able to get to, but I know that there was some contact information shared, and the recording will be available if you want to look at it later. So thank you all so much to the panelists, and for all of you for joining us on a Sunday, taking time out of your Sunday. I wish you all the best in all your adventures and journeys and changes through life. There will be many. Just reach out, ask, with your gut, and don't take no for an answer.
Just any questions, contact us in the future.
Yeah.
Contact me.
Okay.
Welcome to everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.